My psychotic teacher hits me with her car and breaks my collarbone after I give her a brutal reality check in front of the entire school. I had disliked this teacher all year, albeit respectfully. I signed up for the class thinking it was going to be taught by my favorite teacher whom she had a hand in getting fired. There was no official reason. He was asked to leave because despite winning a number of students' favorite teacher awards, the department didn't like him. Meanwhile, she had only been out of Yale for a few years and had only taught high school for 1 year before. I only took the class because I was busy and it was supposed to be an easy class. I was taking 4 AP classes, was a 3-season athlete, and had more extracurriculars. She made it an absolute hell. She assigned more reading than any other class I've ever had up to that point. She literally gave out more work than all 4 of my AP classes combined. Meanwhile, she was lazy as hell. She didn't do lesson plans. She'd show up to an 80-minute class with the rough idea of what she wanted to do and then wing it, resulting in tons of wasted class time. She was never in her office to answer questions and never promptly answered emails. She took ages to grade essays she would constantly assign. The term grade was used loosely as it was often arbitrary and based entirely on length. We actually tested this. My friend handed in a long paper about Batman. I handed in a well-written piece on a topic that was half as long. He got an A and I got a D. On top of that, a rambling piece I wrote, full of profanities, got a 97. Then she falsely accused me of cheating for bringing in notes on an open notes test because apparently open notes meant only notes that were taken in class. Because I'd done additional research on the book, I had an unfair advantage over the other students. This led to her submitting a case to the school disciplinary board, which, had I been found guilty, would have gotten me kicked out of my dream college I had just gotten into, as well as suspended. When they cleared me of cheating, she accused me of plagiarism for not citing the notes I didn't use on the test. Again, cleared. Although I hadn't liked her all year, I've been respectful about it. Up to that point, I participated in class and tried to be a good student. She didn't suspect I might have hated her until after the cheating incident. Past that, I started showing up to class, not talking or taking part in the discussions I usually led. Finally, we get to May, the AP season. Even though she's already assigned far above the required number of essays, she assigns a massive one on the first day of APs. She says it's due the Monday after APs, which is senior skip day, and it also covers prom weekend, the Saturday after APs. She was the only teacher in the department to assign an essay. Due to the way my schedule worked, I would have been able to stay home on the last Friday of APs after my 5 exams. That was until the email I got Thursday night from her saying there was an additional reading packet we needed for the essay due on Monday. We needed to pick it up at school. I asked her if she could scan the packet. The English department had a scanner that teachers often used, and she had admitted to forgetting to hand it out in class. A number of people had the same schedule and wouldn't have otherwise had to come in. She said no, without any explanation, so I came in reluctantly. I had no intention of starting a fight. The year was almost over and I honestly just wanted to be done with this class. So I knocked on her door, walked into her office. It was one of the first times I'd seen her at her desk. I was there to pick up the packet and the first thing she said was, "Do we have a problem?" It was probably due to the whole not talking thing at that point. I lost it. I never raised my voice or directly insulted her. No profanities. However, I was angry as hell and basically went off at her for 5 minutes without letting her get a word in. Yes, we have a problem. I committed a half hour into school on my day off after 5 AP exams to pick up a packet you forgot to hand out, and you were too lazy to scan for a ridiculously long essay. You've assigned more work over APs. I'm tired of hearing you brag about how you went to Yale and how much money you make in class. I'm tired of waiting months to get poorly graded papers back, including the Batman story. You had no memory of it. Plus, a few more examples of terrible grading. I'm tired of doing the ridiculous amounts of busy work you assign, and yes, I'm still angry. You accused me of cheating. We both know I didn't cheat. The dean agreed I didn't cheat, even though we talked about it and how submitting a claim put my entire future at risk over something trivial that had no effect on my grade. You submitted a claim anyways and almost got me kicked out of college. So yes, we have a problem. I grabbed the packet and walked out. I didn't look back. According to the crowd who was watching this in the hall through the glass door of the office, she broke down crying as soon as I left. After that, she got up and filed a claim against me for all things physically threatening her. The school investigated. Every other teacher in the office verified I never threatened her verbally or physically, but they also said it was the most disrespectful conversation that they've ever seen a student have with a teacher, so I was suspended. Then she hit me with her car on the day I was out of school. She became known as the teacher who broke my wrist. My creepy gym teacher pulled the most disgusting stunt the day before he was set to retire and met instant karma. We had a basketball coach who was pretty well loved by our entire school. He was one of those teachers that would let you skip class and would never snitch. He was basically a teacher that everyone thought of as a student and a teacher all the kids would go to tell all the drama to, especially the girls. All the girls in the school had a crush on him, and I will admit, from one guy to another, he was pretty handsome for his age. Everyone knew this was his last year, and he has been saying for the past couple of months that he was going to throw a little party on his last day teaching, and we were all super excited. Fast forward to his last day of school, he told the under-18s girls basketball team he'd be bringing in a treat for them to say thank you for being such wonderful students, and also mentioned that he had a different treat for the boys. This seemed like a lovely gesture, but it was a bit strange that he had a difference for both genders. When Friday rolled around, he handed each of the girls a chocolate and the boys had pizza. Innocent, simple, yet sweet and thoughtful. Or so everyone thought. These chocolates actually turned out to be a specific type of chocolate that was supposed to increase the intimacy drive of couples to enhance their bedroom experience, containing various ingredients known to boost hormones and turning anyone on almost instantly. Nobody rejected these chocolates as they didn't want to be rude to this old teacher who brought them a sweet gift. Fast forward 20 minutes, the girls are all in a state of panic. Some of them weren't sure what was happening to them and assumed something was wrong, so they went to the nurse. Meanwhile, the changing room was filled with these girls either making out or in the showers doing God knows what. Some girls had even texted boys from the school who were more than happy to come out of class and meet them in the school bathroom. One girl, however, had been given an extra Tabs chocolate out of the kindness of this old man's heart. This meant she was twice as ready to go as any of the girls getting it on in the locker rooms. Long story short, this was the girl the basketball coach had chosen out of the lot. The two were found in the disabled bathrooms when the principal went to do a roll call to find out where all the girls had gone to. Many of the girls were caught in the act and expelled, but this teacher was arrested in front of everybody as they escorted him into a cop car. He announced, "I have enjoyed my time teaching you all. I am glad I was able to teach you all one very important lesson. Don't take candy from strangers. I wish you all the best of luck in life, and thank you all for a wonderful show today." My transphobic teacher was harassing me, so I completely humiliated her in front of the entire school. I am a 16-year-old trans girl, and I started my transition about a year ago now. Absolutely no one in my life has given me any issues about my shift in appearance, except for this one incredibly hateful, nasty teacher. Even though I endured basically an entire year of verbal abuse and harassment from her, I still feel kind of happy that I could be the one to eventually take her down and give her a taste of her own medicine. She won't be in a position where she is able to treat another student like she did to me anytime soon, and for that I'm grateful. Anyways, as I mentioned earlier, I began transitioning about a year ago, and I have had her class for this entire year. Therefore, my teacher was able to notice when I started a gradual transition in my gender appearance. Like I said, literally nobody bothered me about the way I looked, none of my classmates, none of my teachers. It was literally just this one miserable teacher. The way she would go about her harassment was extremely calculated. She would never let anyone overhear the things she was saying to me, and she would only whisper her judgments to me in class when no one was around us. She was insane. She had this creepy habit of standing over me while I was working and whispering transphobic bullshit T right into my ear. She is constantly calling me the T slur and the F slur, and she once even told me that she can't wait for me to unalive myself, just like all the other T eventually do. Little did she know, after the very first time that she made one of those types of comments to me, I started recording every single one of our interactions. I would literally press record on my phone as soon as I entered her class, and I wouldn't stop recording until I left. That means that I had an entire year of proof of her transphobic harassment all saved in my phone as audio files with dates and times. I knew that eventually I would try to get her fired or possibly even sue her. But when I was chosen to do a presentation at the end of the year assembly, I knew it would be the perfect place for my revenge. No teacher should ever be telling their students to take their own lives, and she deserved every ounce of humiliation I brought onto her. She was so bold with her hatred, so I wondered if I was the first queer student that she ever verbally abused like this. I knew that I needed to take her down in a way she would never forget, so she could understand that the queer community was not her punching bag, and that she couldn't be her nasty, bigoted self anymore without repercussions. My teacher could have never guessed that I had recorded about 95% of her transphobic rants that she had been whispering to me in her class all year. As I mentioned in my first post, I had been selected to give a big presentation at the end of the year assembly. This wasn't the first time I had been given an important responsibility at a school assembly. I am a straight A student and I'm involved in a lot of different academic clubs, and all my other teachers really like me. So none of them could have assumed that I had a secret plan of revenge when I got up on stage that day. I decided to create a video compilation containing all of the worst highlights from my recordings. I included every single time that she told me to unalive myself, and every single time she used disgusting slurs to try to hurt my feelings. When it was my time to present, I arranged with the tech students to play my video compilation directly after the main presentation was over, so that it would be seen by the entire school. When the video compilation started playing, people started whispering and slowly realized that it was a teacher at our school speaking in the footage. No one interrupted the presentation, and the school staff let my video play completely through. After it finished, it was completely silent in the auditorium for a full minute before one student stood up and let out a loud boo. This led to the entire auditorium exploding into a frenzy of boos, all directed at my transphobic teacher. My teacher was at the assembly, of course, and she ended up running out crying. I saw her soon after that, after the assembly was over, since my principal called us both into his office to get the full story. She immediately tried to backpedal. She even tried to accuse me of framing her. I asked her how could I have framed her when everybody had just heard the proof of you harassing one of your students for the entire year. That's when my teacher started to have what seemed like a full-on mental breakdown and started screaming at the principal for letting some little T completely ruin her like that. My principal started telling her to calm down and that she was acting inappropriately, telling her that her behavior wasn't acceptable for an educator. That's when she gestured to me and said that I was the one behaving unacceptably since I was lying about who I was in the first place. She was breathing hard, and this big vein in her forehead just kept getting bigger. She turned to me and said that I was just some stupid little boy and that I deserved to be embarrassed just like her. I could not believe what I was experiencing when my teacher literally lunged at me and tried to pull my skirt down. My principal had to literally jump over his desk so he was able to restrain her in time before she ripped my skirt completely down. I knew this woman was out of her mind, but I never thought that she would go as far as to attack me, especially in front of her boss. I guess she knew that she had lost her job anyways, and all she cared about at that moment was trying to get back at me. Luckily, my principal told me to leave his office for my safety and told the secretary to call the police. They ended up arresting my teacher for assault, and I have decided that not only am I going to press charges on her for attacking me, but also for all the discrimination she put me through. So let me reiterate, never F with a teenage trans girl. My English teacher tried failing half the class after losing our papers, so I helped her retire early. I had an English teacher named Mrs. Smith. She liked to refer to herself as Dr. Smith, despite not having a doctorate, and was a mean old bat that hated anything and everything. She was ugly inside and out. To give a mental image of what she looks like, her face sagged so much it looked like she had a perpetual stroke. She had about 2 feet in between her eyebrows and her eyes. Imagine Ursula and Cruella de Vil had a child and then that child had a baby with the devil. You get Mrs. Smith. None of the other English teachers liked her. There was nothing that they nor the administration could do due to her tenure. That is, until I became her student. Her teaching style included, but was not limited to, yelling at students, putting them down with petty insults, having us read to ourselves in the middle of class, and kicking out students that were dozing off, then later falling asleep herself at her desk. She wouldn't let female students go to the restroom for very obvious reasons, and would lose students' work, then accuse the students of not turning their work in. This last part is what crossed the line for me. You see, I wasn't a grade A student and I sucked at English, so I always played my cards right and made friends with everyone, students and teachers included. So when I struggled and couldn't do something on my own, I let my charm save me and cashed out on my months of being nice to everyone. However, no one could be friends with Mrs. Smith. I tried being polite. I was met with rudeness. I tried asking her how her morning was. I was met with silence and dead stares. I tried asking how I could improve my writing skills, but she told me that she wasn't willing to help. Within the first week of class, I knew I had met my match. So halfway through the semester, we're working on a big research paper. The day after the due date, Mrs. Smith had to go up to Illinois for some family issues for 2 weeks. Mind you, we turned in our papers both in hand and on turnitin.com for plagiarism checking. No biggie. We won't get our grades back for a while, but at least we won't have to deal with her BS. Or so we thought. A few days after she got back, only about half of the students got their papers back. The other half, including myself, were sitting there staring and waiting, thinking that she was going to go back to her desk and pull out the remaining papers to return to her students. But nope, she told us to take out our textbooks and start reading Beowulf, including myself, who didn't receive their papers, tried to interject and inquire about our papers. She snapped back with, "You should have turned them in when they were due." In unison, we respond with what we did. Of course, she denies it, and within a few days, our grades drop immensely. At the end of the grading period, our reports cards show a big fat F for English. Everyone was livid. The worst part was that if you got anything below a C, you were to be moved to a lower level English at the end of the semester. Between the 0 from the paper that carried almost half of our grade and only a few weeks remaining in the semester, almost half of the class was doomed to fail out. Now, most of the students were happy with having to leave her class. There was not much they could do. But I was careful. Remember the teaching methods I mentioned above? Well, Mrs. Smith thought that because we were in a classroom that had no cameras, her behavior wasn't being recorded. She was dead wrong. From the second week on, I started recording audio on my phone every day from the moment I walked into class to the moment I left. Every day. I caught every single one of her personal attacks of students on tape. When she fell asleep, I pulled out my phone and recorded her. My pleas for help to improve and her refusal to help weren't left out either. I would go home and cut the audio to keep the good parts, and every day my collection of dirt on her grew. And remember how I said we used turnitin.com as well as paper? I had coordinated with all the other students who were going to fail to screenshot all of their Turnitin receipts and send them to me as proof that they turned in their work. When she decided to fail me for her mistake, she unleashed hell on herself. I went straight to the administration and scheduled a parent-teacher admin conference. A week later, my parents, the principal, the school counselor, the head of the English department, and Mrs. Smith were all present. I started with how she had lost half of the class's work and most of us failed because of it. She denied it and again accused us of turning in our work late as well as cheating and a bunch of other BS and lies. I remained calm and just pulled out a folder that contained all of the screenshots from my backpack and handed it to the principal. He then passed it to the head of the English department, who then asked Mrs. Smith to explain it. She instantly turned red in the face and started stuttering. Before she could get any words out, I said, "That's not all, listen to this." I pulled out my phone and started playing back the season highlights from the semester. All the while, I'm staring dead into Mrs. Smith's eyes while trying to hold back a grin. The suspense in the room would have killed Jason Statham. After the audio finished, the principal looked at me and said, "I think we've seen enough," and asked me to leave. I sat outside of the conference room, savoring the muffled yelling through the walls. I'm pretty sure I heard my dad utter the words "filthy piece of crap," but I don't want to point fingers. The parent-teacher conference was on a Friday. I walked into class the following Monday to see an empty desk and a substitute teacher we all recognized and loved. Overall, I'd rate the experience a 10/10. Would document everything again.